Thank you, Mrs. Schmidt. Comments or questions from board members on the organizational chart? Not. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 8-0. Mr. Groman.
Third motion is to approve the following revised job descriptions, labeled as A through G.
Do we have a second to that motion?
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Schmidt. Comments or questions on the revised job descriptions? If not, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 8-0. Mr. Groman.
Motion to approve the job description for the transportation router dispatcher position.
Do we have a second to that motion? Thank you, Mr. Schmidt. Comments or questions on the job description, revised job description? Not? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 8-0. Mr. Regoma.
Motion to approve a memorandum of understanding between the Pennridge School District and the Pennridge Education Association, granting to a one-time district compensate gap insurance payment to certified staff member employee number 856.
Do we have a second to that motion?
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Schmidt. Comments or questions from board members? Not? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 8-0. Mr. Regoma.
And the last is a motion to approve the independent contracts for KLJ Consulting Services, LLC, and Bavard and Associates, LLC.
Do we have a second to that motion?
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Miller. Comments?
My apologies, there, yes, the addendum to the, to KLJ Consulting is on the electronic one.
Yes. Mrs. Miller, are you willing to second that as well?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Comments or questions from board members? If not, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 8-0. Mr. Regoma.
Thank you. The next Personnel Committee meeting is scheduled for September 9, 2015.
Thank you. We'll move to policy review. Mrs. Miller.
Thank you, Dr. Yarnell. We did not meet, however, our next scheduled meeting is September 9th. I believe it's 6:30. Is that what we're? Thank you.
Thank you. The Upper Bucks County Technical School Committee. Mrs. Schmidt.
Thank you, Dr. Yarnell. The Upper Bucks County Tech School met twice since our last board meeting, once on May 21st and also on June 18th. Their full minutes will be available online, but just to touch on a few items, this past Saturday, June 20th, they held an auction to dispose of many of the items that were accumulated over the years and are not needed once the renovations are finished. We'll have results of that after the next meeting. In regard to the construction, there's a lot of construction now that this school year is out, happening up there, a lot of demolition on one end of the school. They are still currently on schedule for the December finish date. They are 70% complete on a cost basis, 64% on a time basis. One other note involving Pennridge is the JOC approved the food service consulting contract for Mrs. Gerantara, thank you, to consult with their food services there in an effort to bring them into the black, and that will be a one-year contract to be approved yet by our board. The next meeting for the tech school is scheduled for August 20th, 2015 at 7:30.
Thank you, Mrs. Schmidt. The Technology Committee, there is no meeting scheduled as yet. Mr. Thompson is not with us tonight, so we'll move on to Act 48. Mrs. Schmidt.
Act 48 did not meet this month.
Thank you. And ad hoc fundraising.
Ad hoc fundraising met on June 17th. Quick recap, there was discussion on the Rams on the Ridge campaign, including advertising. There are a total of 4 contracts approved, 2 pending for a total of $4,200. Green and White Club, there was discussion on that, and going forward, some ideas as far as what the benefits for sponsors will be. Pavers, after advertising through the Pennridge School District newsletter, Mr. Ferry reported that we saw an upturn in the sales of the pavers. We're up to 27 8x8 and 8 12x12s. Discussion also included the flagpole memorial, which is for our veterans who were Pennridge alumni. Mr. John Snyder was there to discuss that. He will be putting forth funds so that himself committing them for the memorial to be ordered through the granite company so that that can be finished for our September 4th first game opening night. Right now, he has committed to it $7,000. He collected $3,000, which was turned over to the ad hoc committee fund. Discussion about excess funds. He expects to have excess funds collected beyond what the cost of the memorial will be, and there was discussion in how to use it, possibly for maintenance, or maybe scholarships for families of lost soldiers. And as of right now, we don't have another ad hoc committee meeting scheduled. It'll be as needed. Oh, I'm sorry.
There are some
I'm
motions.
not used to having motions. We do have two motions. The first motion is to approve the Chris Wolf Plumbing Incorporated advertising agreement.
Do we have a second to that motion?
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Yardley. Moved and seconded to approve the Chris Wolf Plumbing advertising agreement. Comments or questions from board members?
I have,
Mrs. Miller?
Yeah, a very quick question. I noticed in the contract it's $1,000 for a 3-year, having signed, I guess after 3 years. Do they pay that $1,000 up front, or is that like divided out by 3 years?
All up front.
It's all up front, thank you.
Any other comments or questions on this motion? If not, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 8-0. Mrs. Schmidt?
Okay. Second motion is to approve the Indian Valley Ambucks advertising agreement.
Do we have a second to that motion?
second.
Thank you, Mrs. Yardley. Another motion to approve an advertising agreement. Comments or questions from board members? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 8-0. Thank you, Mrs. Schmidt. Unfinished business. First, I would like to recognize, in addition to the service that we have acknowledged and we certainly appreciate from Mrs. Johnson and her retirement forthcoming, we also have Dr. Villard retiring at the same time on July 1. So I would like to thank Dr. Bavard for his 12 years of service and all the things that he's done for the district during those 12 years. We certainly appreciate it. So the board members. We will miss you both. So, any other unfinished business from board members? Mrs.
Dr. Arnell?
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Not too long ago, I think it was the previous board meeting or two, we had talked about Dr. Galasso, and we
Yes.
had talked about an ad hoc committee, and I was willing to do that, but I've got some family health issues that prevent me from doing it. But I still think that we should do this board should do something specifically in recognition of Dr. Galasso.
I concur with you, Mr. Deming, and there has been some discussion. Dr. Radigan and I have had some discussion on this. Dr. Galasso, I believe, Mrs. Miller, you can confirm that he's retiring September 1?
I believe so, and then there is a luncheon already, save the date, set up in September, so I don't know if you wanted to piggyback on that.
Okay. Well, we'll have to decide, but in theory, if we would ask him here to our board meeting, similarly to what we did with Representative Clenner, then we could have that either the July meeting or the August meeting at his convenience. So we will discuss that and try to make sure that that occurs.
And he'll be in the picture.
Yes, I know, but I think it'd be nice to acknowledge him before he actually steps down.
Oh, yeah.
He's done a lot of great things for the district and the county. Thank you for bringing that up and reminding me, Mr. Fleming. And Mrs. Yardley.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on some of the classes that people, that the public and students and parents and community members had concerns about, because I don't think it's been put out there in the public, like, you know, exactly what's running and not running. So courses, at the curriculum meeting, we talked about classes that were slated to be cut. There were a lot of people that came that night regarding the language programs, and then the following board meeting, there were people that came to talk about AP World History. So I'm happy to say that AP World History is running. That's what the administration has told the board. And German 5 Honors is running. Also on the original list to be cut were British Literature 2 and Photography 2, and those classes also are running. French 5 Honors, I believe there were 6 or 7 students who signed up, and they were offered a cyber class, but none of the students chose to take that. And then there was also German 1 at North and South Middle Schools that did not have enough students signed up to run a class. And the administration came up with a creative solution to have the students take the class at the high school. And we found out that all of 10 of the students at South have decided to take it at the high school, and 4 of the 12 from North are taking that option. So I'm very happy to see that there are students who, those students are able to take German 1, and that we found a solution, you know, in spite of the low numbers, and that it didn't cost the district anything to have them come to the high school, and they are all 8th grade students. And I know people were concerned about AP US history, and it is going to be, if the numbers stay as they are, there will be 2 sections. So if it's over 34, it will have 2 sections running. So that is good news as well. So I just wanted to share that, because a lot of the times people bring their concerns, and it hasn't ever been stated publicly what's happening to all those classes. So I think that was covered most of the concerns that people have.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to comment on the unfinished business? Not? We'll move to new business. I'm going to make this motion that we approve a change in the May and June 2016 board meeting dates. And the new dates would be May 16th, 2016 and June 20th, 2016. Do I have a second to that motion? Thank you, Mrs. Schmidt. I will comment that last meeting we discussed the fact that I believe the original June date was June 27th, which gave us very, very little time to put together the tax notices and get them into the mail for early July. And that may not seem important to people. I can tell you from personal experience, I deal with another school district in central Pennsylvania, and they are inevitably late with their tax bills, but it gives you no more time. It simply means that the September 30th date for the discount period is shorter and sooner. So I think it's much better. No one likes to receive tax bills that I know of, but if you're going to get it, I think it's better to have it sooner, not later, and give you a little more time to deal with the issue. So I would certainly recommend that we do approve this, and it does allow us the 30 days in between the 2 dates so that the public inspection can occur, the posting can occur. Any other comments or questions about this proposed change? If not, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 8-0. At this point, the next school board meeting is scheduled for Monday, July 27th, 2015. It will be at 7 o'clock, I believe. The agenda says 7:30, at least the electronic agenda, but we are changing that to 7 o'clock, so note that change. It will be here in LGI 3.3. There were the PEA teacher negotiations were held on May 28th, 2015. There was an executive there will be an executive session following tonight's meeting for the purpose of both negotiation and personnel matters. Comments or questions from guests? Yes, ma'am.
Diane Herring, Hilltown Township. Mrs. Yardley brought forth a point that I thought that was interesting, which is what perception is versus reality and how information is communicated, and that finishing of the flow of information. And I'm tying that into an issue that's come up recently with budgetary funding. And you may not be aware of this, but it affects the kids. Specifically your marching band. You did not, as far as I have heard from any other parent, restrict the participation of any athletic team for the upcoming year. You did not go to their coach and tell them you must cut how many games you compete in. But that is what you have told the band director. You have given the band director a transportation budget that is not based on what the students did last year. And consequently, because of that, whereas last year they were able to attend enough competitions to attain the privilege and honor of representing this district in championships, they will not have enough competitions on their roster to be entitled to go to championships this coming year. The reason I bring this up is because when you talk about your transportation department, and I get the advantage of saying after 25 years in transportation, you guys don't know what you're doing from an operating ratio. You have no idea what it costs you per mile to turn that bus on. So you cannot give people information and tell them the bus will cost you X. Over the course of the last year, I have listened to this board give the expense for what it costs to move the band 5 different numbers. When asked, how much does it cost to turn the bus on to move the band, to figure out the budget for the coming year, you know the transportation department can't give it to the band director. So how's he supposed to tell anybody how many competitions they can go to? He's supposed to build an entire year for 9 performance groups, and you can't tell him how much the bus costs. But you gave him a fixed budget. So when you talk about the impact to the kids, you're not looking at apples to apples. And along with the lines of what Mrs. Yardley said, I hope at some point in the future, someone can answer how it is you give one coach director a cut budget on transportation, but you don't meet that out equally. Because when you hear the community stand here, and they come after it now, and they say, why is this with the football field, the football field, the football field? It's because there are other things happening around here that I don't think you folks realize. And the comparatives are really starting to weigh on the town. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Herring. Anyone else? Mr. Linden?
Robert Linden, West Rockwell. Under the Personnel Committee, I don't recall a motion to approve the independent contracts for KLJ. Is that KLJ Consulting?
Yes, it is KLJ.
And Dr. Bavard and Associates Consulting? Is that like Kathy Johnson?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, I don't remember that being discussed in the meeting. And now I'm assuming that they're retiring, but you're hiring them back. Is that correct?
Like
Those contracts are what are called independent contractor agreements. So the district is hiring companies that those individuals have formed or are in the process of forming, so that the transition from Ms. Johnson and Dr. Bavard to their successors is smooth, or relatively smooth, or as smooth as it can be. And so they're not being hired as employees, they're being hired as what's called an independent contractor.
I understand the difference, I just wanted...
You had mentioned that you didn't remember them being discussed. They were voted on tonight.
I just didn't
As
recall
part of,
them
as
at the
part of the
meeting.
regular agenda.
Anyway, I wanted you to point that out. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Lindley. Mr. Rush?
Good evening, everyone. Looks like all the usual suspects are in the room. I haven't been around much. I've been traveling a lot. My work takes me now to many places in this great country. It's sad, though, because mostly I go to inner city schools in America, some of the most distressed districts in the country because of budget problems. And they're hit the hardest in terms of what they need because of the cut of staff, teachers, nurses, counselors. Most recently, I finished up in Philadelphia consulting with 5 high schools. And I know that this is what we have in our country, this amazingly disproportionate way to fund schools. But some of my friends in Philly tell me, and I have to really pinch myself to remember I'm being told the truth, the teachers get given 2 reams of paper by the district. That's 1,000 sheets of this kind of stuff. That's what, a penny, less than a penny? That's what they get, 2 reams of paper. If we need to make more copies, we're very sorry, but that's the best we can do. Years ago, I was appointed, Percy Borough Rush. I was appointed by Governor Rendell to sit on a commission for children and families. And there was a costing out study done years ago by the Department of Ed. It was all been done. The legislators get amnesia from time to time and get new commissions and rehash it and re-decide what should be done to make it more equitable. So you're probably right, Dr. Yonell. We're one of the districts that will probably see perhaps less. Who knows? It's going to put more of a burden on us locally. So I'm going to continue, though, to speak, and maybe I'm speaking to the wrong group sometimes. Maybe I think I should go and talk to more leaders in the unions and talk to them about negotiation, what they want, what they can get, what we can afford as a community. But I do know this, and we all know this, that the costs will continue to increase. The resources will continue to be stretched. More and more people will come up from time to time and speak on their constituent spaces. I didn't know there was such a issue with some of the courses, and I'm not one to bemoan anybody for wanting their kids to get the best education they can. But I do know this, that when I talk to elementary educators and middle school educators, they're telling me over their career they've seen more stress and more demand on kids' spirits and their work than ever before. So that the anxiety and the stress and all that continues. So I don't know if it's too early to talk about 16-17 budget year. I guess you start that tomorrow morning. But I'm going to advocate continually to reinstate our counselors in middle school, that we get 2 full-time counselors in every building. I'm glad we have 1.3. That's certainly helped. But the parents who have gone through unbelievable pain and stress when their child gets addicted to drugs or, God forbid, kills themselves, it happens. It's not the fault of the school. It's not the fault of any one person when somebody goes down that path. But I do know this, that the probability can be decreased for such tragedies the more people we have in those support positions. And if you get 2 more counselors, they will literally affect thousands of students. I just came from Pennridge South today. We did a 7-hour professional development class on restorative practices. And we were both honest with each other. June 22nd is not the best day for a teacher to be in a learning class, not the best day for me to be a teacher. Teaching teachers in June, it's a long year, but they were outstanding because it was really an interesting, relevant kind of material they were getting. So I want to thank the district, Dr. Radigan, Dr. Phillips, for looking at some more support staff for those positions going forward, and for instituting some of those pilot programs in social emotional learning. Our organization lost a big federal grant, so it's great to see some other courses being put in place. And do whatever you can to try to make those positions happen. I think that the real rub is going to be negotiation. Like, people have to say, what do we want? What can we afford? If we want those positions, those classes, then we have to negotiate a contract that we can afford as much as we can that affects the most people. So that's all I had. And just one comment about the contracts. I'm an independent contractor too, so I get all that. But just as a taxpayer and a citizen, I could read between the lines. And anybody who comes to these meetings knew what that was about. But it just would be helpful going forward when it's so obvious, just to kind of, in the spirit of transparency, kind of state that, so that, you know, most people don't know, but having someone ask the question is a pretty legitimate question, but I think it would have been helpful because everybody knew what was that about, so just kind of state it out loud initially, so that question doesn't have to get asked from the floor. Just a suggestion. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Bavard, for your service. And Kathy Johnson, thank you very much. Good to have you here when you were here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rush. Anyone else? Comments or questions from the press? Ms. Freeman? No? Then this meeting is adjourned. Thank you for coming.